My name is Sandy Adomaitis, the social media director for the Page International Screenwriting Awards, and your host for the Writers Hangout, a podcast that celebrates the many stages of writing, from inspiration to the first draft, revising, getting a project made, and everything in between. We'll talk to the best and the brightest in the entertainment industry and create a space where you can hang out, learn from the pros, and have fun. Hey guys, it's Sandy. I'm coming to you from Studio City, the crown jewel of the San Fernando Valley. And boy, do we have a great show for you, because Carolyn and Omine are here to talk about their Disney Plus episode of The Simpsons titled Yellow Mirror. Carolyn is an Emmy-winning producer who joined The Simpsons writing staff in season 10 and became the show's first female executive producer when she was credited as an executive producer in season 17. Kai is Carolyn's son and a talented artist in his own right. Also a singer, Kai grew up near the 20th Century Fox lot and had other Simpson writers as babysitters. On a side note, you'll hear me call Carolyn Corky. We're old friends, and Corky is an old nickname, and my brain just won't let me call her by her real name. Also, there is not one, but two Simpsons exclusives in this episode. Are you guys ready? Let's start the show. Carolyn Omine and Kai Omine, thank you so much for joining us on the Writers Hangout.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, this is super cool.
We were supposed to record earlier, but you had a bit of emergency. What happened?
Yeah.
Our little dog Lucy, out of nowhere, started crying. She's very vocal. She always makes these little monkey noises when she's excited, but she was yelping. And then every time we touched her, couldn't really figure out where it was. So we had to take her to the vet. She's of the Dachshund Corgi body type.
Yeah.
Which apparently...
Very long, very short. She's like a big sausage. So she's prone to back problems, and she had a little disc thing.
That's what they suspect. And we did, she's just...
No confirmation.
She's just on drugs. But she's a little mix. She looks like if they took all the extra parts of many different dogs and put them like, here, we got extra, let's make a dog.
Adorable. She's sleeping now, Lucy?
She's got a little chew bone.
Me too. Yeah. Hey guys, congratulations on your episode of The Simpsons titled Yellow Mirror. It hasn't aired yet. Can you tell us anything about it?
Sure. So last season, we've started doing some episodes that air exclusively on Disney Plus, 2 to 4 episodes a season. Usually things used to air on Fox, and then a year later they would go on Disney Plus. And there's a few that go exclusively on Disney Plus, and this is one of them. It is an anthology, as we do in The Simpsons. Sometimes we do either full-length episodes, or sometimes we'll do trilogies. Sometimes we've done Bible stories and things where we've done 3. But this one, because it's on Disney Plus, we have a little bit more leeway. It's never going to be broadcast on regular broadcast television, so it doesn't have a lot of the requirements that normal Simpsons do. So part of why we used to do trilogies was because we had those commercial breaks. This doesn't have commercial breaks. So we decided to do this anthology, and then we decided 2 of our stories we just liked them so much, we decided not to try and cram in a third. So it's unusual in that it's only 2 stories. So it's actually a new length of story for us.
Oh, interesting.
Like a mama bear of sizes.
Is that what we're calling it now?
That's what we're calling it now. But we are only limited in terms of cost of animation, as opposed to normally we have episodes have to be 20 minutes and 40 seconds, like to the second. We can let things breathe a little bit more because it can be pretty much any length we want, because it's only going to ever air streaming. I did a Christmas episode like this, and they were like, you can luxuriate because, you're not on broadcast. And I was like, oh, how much extra, you're just limited by the cost of animation. So I was like, oh, how much more time is that? And they're like, 10 seconds. I was like, no.
I just have a question. When you say you're only limited by animation, what does that mean? You're only limited in the cost of animation?
Yes, like the actual cost of.
But what about the actors?
The actors get paid for doing a recording session. Though it doesn't. I don't know if it matters. I don't know if they get paid for longer recording sessions, but.
Okay. Oh, now that makes sense. It is the length.
It is. So yeah, the most expensive part is the animation, and it is like super lots of money per second. Yeah.
I see. And I take it from the title, it is a takeoff on Black Mirror?
Yeah, like Black Mirror or more of a Twilight Zone kind of thing, because Black Mirror tends to focus more on like technology or something going crazy, but Twilight Zone, ours is more like weird, and it's got some like horror elements in a way.
Yeah, it's not quite a horror like that, which is why it wasn't quite Treehouse of Horror type of. It was not like one of our.
Yeah,
but it's
a little trippy.
In the way that Black Mirror is similar to Twilight Zone, where like that. Like Black Mirror tends to be specifically about technology. Ours has a little bit of that, but not
the whole thing.
Not the whole thing.
I'm intrigued. Do you know?
We could tell you we were deciding that we were going to exclusively let you know. We
have two really cool guest stars.
Yeah. One is Patty Harrison, who, if people watch
I Think You Should Leave,
the brilliant sketch show, I Think You Should Leave.
She was also in Together with Ed Helms. So it was a movie from a bit ago.
She's brilliant. And so she does a real star
Super
turn.
Funny.
And then we also have a really exciting cameo by Demi Moore. And
super duper cool.
The fact that both of them are beautiful, dark-haired women with bangs is just a coincidence. That is not anything to do with the episode, but just other than being an interesting thing.
It's a little bit.
Guys, thank you so much. This is my first exclusive.
Yeah, we wanted to.
The Writers Hangout exclusive. I'm so excited. You have an air date yet?
No, we don't.
No.
Not yet. We're just about to get the color back. We had the schedule got a little messed up because of the fires and gotten back on schedule for after the strike. And then the fires were devastating. Right. We had a couple people on our show who lost their homes. And yeah, it was just, anyway, so that kind of threw us for a loop.
I'm very sorry for your coworkers who lost their homes. It was such a tough period of time. Kai, I don't think you know this, but the other big headline during the fires was Corky and I didn't make our dinner because of the fires.
I saw that on CBS. That's tragic. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And we're so LA, we didn't even call each other. We just knew. Kai, I'm sure you've attended many Simpson table reads.
Yes.
What was it like sitting in a room and hearing your work performed by those talented actors, which we can now include Harrison and Moore, writers and producers? But before you answer, can you explain to the writers out there who might not know what a table read is?
Sure. So a table read, once the script is mostly finalized, then we have the writers and producers and the actors come together for about an hour to actually read through the script. That's why it's called a table read.
There is a table.
Yeah. Oh, there's a table too.
They sit around a table.
There's a whole long process deciding the right table.
And we got
a good one.
There is one caveat that we had
because of the fires.
We had gone after the pandemic. We wrote remote for almost 2 years, and then we actually had our table reads were over Zoom for almost 3 years. But we had started to go back almost most of our table because it really makes a big difference to do them live, because on Zoom things are the timing is off because people have lag, but we did have to go back to
our specific table read.
This particular table read was Zoom.
Online on Zoom because of the fires. So many people would end up just not being able to come to the physical table read. So we were just like, oh, okay, we'll just have it online. which still made it pretty cool. It was still so cool to hear all the actors reading out our script, like Dan Castellaneta, who does Homer, and so many other voices. I've met him so many other times in my life and known him as a person. But then hearing him do Homer for the joke that I wrote was so cool and so surreal. And he would just bring something new to it that I didn't expect to bring to it. And that's true for everyone. Everyone too. All of the actors were so good and it was so much fun. Even when there were like little Zoom hiccups, like someone not coming in time or something, or lagging, some weird technological issue. But yeah, that was such a fun experience.
For us, the number one goal of the table read, besides hearing it out loud for the first time, but our biggest priority at The Simpsons is that's really the first time that Matt Groening and Jim Brooks hear it. And so that's where often they know of stories, but that's really the first time they hear it. And that's when they give their notes. And so we're always a little worried. I hope Jim likes it. No, he doesn't want to change a bunch of stuff. And it went well. So that was, even though it was on Zoom and there was all these hiccups, they still
like the script.
So that was, by our standards, was a success.
That is great. How did you guys divide up the workload? Who came up with the premise when writing the script? Did you sit down together? Did you write separate? How did it all come about?
She did all of it, and then I just put my name next to her.
He typed his name in. Now
that was tiring. Oh my God, I remember that.
No, so here's the thing: is like where we just even decided to write together. I always knew I wanted to write with him, but I had done 2 scripts that were 3. My last 2 scripts, like I did the Treehouse of Horror 33. And when we were getting ready for the table read of that, it was when we were behind, and Kai had to go went on this trip to look at colleges. And so I was basically like, rather than using the room, it was like, I was just going to be writing it on the plane and in hotel rooms and stuff. And so I would run things by Kai then. And so he helped a lot on that. And then I did another episode, A Mid-Childhood Night's Dream, which was the same thing. It was when he was actually going to college, and I was very upset and crying because he was leaving. And so I was writing that, and he was helpful then. And then this last thing I did, which was a double Christmas episode, that was coming back off of the strikes. And then we decided to do this double episode. So that was already a lot of work. But then it was like, when we decided to make it a Christmas episode, then Disney was like, great, we'll need it in October. And we're like, what? Because normally things don't go on Disney Plus until a year later. But since this was the first time we were doing an exclusive that was on Disney Plus, we didn't realize things have to be turned in 2 months earlier. So they translate everything. So it was like it was such a tight deadline that for the color, I didn't have a room for that either. It was like we get the color back on I remember it was like Wednesday at 10:30 at night. And they were like, by 2:30 the next afternoon, where normally we would have a room do a whole color rewrite. And then we, like the next week, we would figure out the edits and all this. It was like, by 2:30 the next day, I needed to come up with all of the edits, and anything that we were going to rewrite would have to be done with either ADR, automated dialogue replacement, or editing. There was very little retakes we could do. And so
Corky, that is insane schedule. Yeah, absolutely insane.
And because it was a double episode, it was like, we did 1 week like that, where it was like, I remember it was like a Wednesday, 10:30. It's going to be final lock edit 2:30 on Thursday, and then meeting with the composers for the music and then mixing it and then the next week, because it was a double episode. That was the first half, and then the next week it was Wednesday. Like, we did the second half and then put it all together. So it was really crazy. And there just wasn't, we couldn't really have a room because it was like I would get it at 10:30 at night. So again, Kai helped me on that. So that's basically where I felt like he deserves to have an episode. He's helped me so much on this.
100%. And for the writers out there who might not understand, when Corky says room, what she means is all the writers will go into one room and sit with the script and work on it. Pump up the jokes. Is that what the kids say? Pump up the jokes. Also, just to double back, I think it's really interesting that you brought up that while you were on the college tour, you were writing the script. For the film people out there and the people who are trying to get into TV, if you're precious with your writing time and you need a good night's rest and it to be very quiet and to have coffee, that's doesn't always happen. You're writing on trains, planes, and automobiles.
Yeah, I remember I was much more, in my younger days, there were things where I felt like things I needed to do to be more writerly. There was a point early on, I'm ashamed to admit that I used to be a smoker. When I quit, I was, how will I write without looking like a writer? But that turned out to not really matter. And then when I had Kai, all of a sudden, those things that I used to think I needed, one of the things I think I used to need was to put things off till the very last minute and then have lots of all-nighters. That was like, I can't do that anymore. I have to just believe that I have access to my writing at all times. And it does work out. I feel like I've gotten better as a writer, just getting rid of all those things.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the thing is, Yellow Mirror, we decided, okay, I'm going to write an episode. We're going to partner on an episode. We made an appointment. Even though we live in the same house, we made an appointment of like when we were going to meet, and we were both going to have ideas and come together with these ideas. And we came up with a whole list of ideas to run past Matt Selman, our showrunner. But the two that we really liked.
Yeah. And even some of the other ones all had the vibe of more of a segment than a full episode.
Yeah, there were a few. Yeah.
Felt more like, yeah, you know what? Let's do this like a treehouse.
Yeah, we knew there was that. We definitely knew that this was the two things that we liked. And then we actually, first we were trying to do a trilogy. So we were trying to come up with other, but when we had come up with some other ideas that would be whole episodes. But it was very much, I think every one of our ideas were like, you had an idea, and then I was like, oh, that's cool, we could do this. And then you were like, it was very much an improv between the two of us. I would definitely say this wasn't an idea I would have come up with by myself. And it really was an idea that it was the mix of the two of us. And the first two stories that we really liked, but it was like, I'm not sure what to do with this because it's not quite a treehouse, but it's very treehouse-like. I don't know.
You explain the treehouse?
So we have, every year we have the Treehouse of Horror, which is our Halloween special. It's 3 segments. Sometimes there's even more because there's usually sometimes a little bumper at the beginning, and sometimes there's a little thing at the end, or sometimes it ends up being like 5 things or whatever. But for the most part, it's 3 separate stories, and it has its own certain vibe. So I was thinking, I'm not sure what we're going to do with this, but when we pitched our stories to Matt Selman, he also was like, those 2 are the ones that were most interesting to him. So we first were like, okay, we'll do those 2, and then we'll just pitch. We kept pitching the 3rd segment, but then we kept saying things that we wanted to have happen in the first 2. And then I texted Matt, like, can we talk for a second? And I said, hey, what about if we did 2 segments? And he was like, I was just thinking you were going to say that. And yeah, it's such a strange thing, but that is a very unusual thing for us to do. And it was like, yeah, why not do that? Why not have this? You don't have to have 3 because it's not a broadcast thing. And this way we can let the stories that we really think are really interesting, because they really are different. And I don't know, we're excited about it.
Now, I don't want to bring up anything sad, and this is actually going to connect to you working with Kai. You co-wrote a lot of Simpsons scripts with Billy Wright, and we lost him last February. Can you just talk a little bit about Billy? I think the writers out there would like to hear about him. But this is how my mind works. Now, you wrote so much with Billy, and now you're writing with Kai on this script. Did anything come up for you? Did you think, but did you get frustrated, or were you just so happy because it was smooth like your relationship with Billy, or you might have put a little pressure on Kai because of what Billy brought to the table, or did none of that happen?
Okay, first of all, it was actually December.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I think you might, because this was in February, but it was
so that's,
December 18th.
18th.
And by the way, Billy and Kai were very close. They have a very special relationship. And I actually, one of my most prized things is when Billy would sometimes babysit Kai, they would improvise like these really hilarious little things. And I would get these little sketches being sent to me over the phone. It was like the greatest babysitter ever. But it was very different. I don't really think things came up because when writing with Kai, I will say, like, with Billy and I wrote so much when we were in the Groundlings together, and we just had always done a lot of improv together. So we were very free and easy, and we always laughed. And then when I first came to him saying, hey, I wanted to give him this opportunity because there's so many talented people who don't get a break. And I felt like he was definitely a writer who was so talented and really deserved a chance. And so I was like, would you like to write an episode with me? And I will say it was so funny because at first he was so nervous. And he was like pitching these weird jokes that was so strange because we had written together so many times. And then I just remember at one point I was saying, okay, we need a line here. And he was like, how about this? How about this? And I was like, do you think that's funny? And he's like, no. And I was like, just relax. And then one day, at his gym, he got into a fight with somebody over, this guy put a towel, like they were in the steam room, and he put a towel over the thing, and there was a sign saying not to do it. He moved the towel and the guy punched him in the face, and he had stitches. It was awful. And we had set up a time to work, and I was like, don't worry, you don't have to come in tomorrow. I was like, no, I'm coming in. And I was like, you don't have to. And he's like, no, I'll come in. He's like, I might not be funny, but I'm going to come in. And I was like, okay. And so he showed up in pain. And he was so hilarious. And I think just because he had been given permission to not have to be great, took all the pressure off. And then all of a sudden we were back to, okay, this is what we do. We could write together.
I love that. And that's such a great story for our writers to hear out there that are nervous to put their talent out there in front of people.
I also remember a story you told me with Billy when you first started writing together. Like one of the first things you wrote together in the Groundlings, you were working on like a sketch or something. And so you were typing and he was telling jokes and you're just going, uh-huh. And then at a certain point, he just went, I feel like you're not listening to me. I feel like you're not writing any of my suggestions. And then you said, no, I am. And you just showed that you weren't like actually saying, oh, that's good for every single one, but you were still writing them all down, writing the good ones down, and like, well, it's good to communicate that.
Yeah, I remember this story. This was like why I was telling you the story. It was how I knew that Billy and I were going to be good friends. Because in the Groundlings, it was like we're in the Sunday show and you pair up with people, and we were writing and he made a joke and I was like, I don't know about that. He just very quickly said, I feel like you're not taking any of my ideas. And I was like, no, look back at the script. That this is your idea. This is your idea. This is your idea. You're just feeling it more when I don't take it. But we've been laughing and all this stuff that you said has gotten in. And he was like, okay, you're right. And that's very much Billy, have his heart on his sleeve. He would be really happy. And then all of a sudden he'd be like, I feel like you're being mean to me or whatever. He would just say it, which was so great. It's a trait I wish I had more of.
Yes, where you always know where you stand with someone.
Yeah, because then it was like, okay. And then we realized, okay, no, that's not true. You are getting, oh yeah, you're right. Okay. And then we carried on. And I was like, I'm going to be really good friends with this guy for a long time. I can just tell. But with Kai, I will say,
I'm a little bit less like that.
No, Kai, it was a very different writing experience and it was very smooth. Now, with Billy, when we wrote on The Groundlings, here's the thing I will say for if you're writing with a partner, it's hard to be completely democratic. When we write on The Simpsons, it's not a democratic process. You have to have one person who's in charge. And with Billy and I, when we wrote our own stuff, it would be whoever was like, if it was your idea for the sketch, you're the one who has the vision, and the other person is the suggester and can suggest even deep things like, is that what this sketch is about? You need to have one person who is the decider. And so then when we did The Simpsons, I've been on the show for 25 years, so I do know the show a little bit more. And it is a very freeing kind of thing to be in both. Because because often when I'm at work, I am not the decider when I'm not running my own episodes or when I'm co-runner. But then you're just like, okay, how about this? How about that? It's fun. But so you were asking about our process of writing. We basically just wrote. We were talking at first that we were going to split up and you write one scene and I write, but we ended up instead just writing more like how we do write Simpsons, where we had an outline and we had gotten notes from the room, and then we went off and we just wrote it, and we just sat together writing it. I really enjoyed it. It was a very smooth. I think Kai is he's respectful because I'm his mom, but he's also not afraid to go, are you sure? I don't think that should. He will voice his opinions very strongly. And he knows me well enough. Like I sometimes, when I'm running the room at The Simpsons, I know this about myself. Sometimes somebody will say, they'll voice a concern and I'll go, I don't see that. And then we'll continue. And then that night at dinner, I'll go, oh, wait, I get what she's saying. Yeah. And then I'll go, okay, I think you were saying, I understand what you're saying now. And because sometimes you just can't see it right away.
Exactly. Kai,
Yes.
you've grown up watching your mom doing all this. And how do I say this? What did you learn? What did you think you knew about writing before you actually became a writer?
Most of my memories of seeing my mom write, it made writing seem very stressful, which it is to a degree, but it's not as stressful as I thought. It's still hard, and something I guess I wish I knew before starting to write a bit more is or at least when I did the Simpsons episode, it was also a lot of producing.
For TV writers, a lot of people don't realize that you have to be an editor, you have to know music. You do a lot.
Yeah,
he definitely has gotten to see a lot of that. And that was,
I learned a lot of how the sausage was made. And it was disgusting.
This episode,
there's a lot of music.
There's a lot of music.
And it's all so cool because we worked with Bleeding Fingers,
Cara
Talvi. And she's so good.
Showing my age, who's Bleeding Fingers?
Bleeding Fingers it's not your age. They are.
No, it's a really new age band everyone's listening to.
They are part of the Hans Zimmer umbrella.
So maybe a way of saying it is a vendor of The Simpsons, the music vendor you guys go to create your music?
They are the brilliant,
Okay. And I apologize to Bleeding Fingers for calling them a vendor. They're not, but that's just the way I think that our audience can grasp it.
And we had been doing a lot with Bleeding Fingers over Zoom just because it's easier, but because there were so many songs, we did go in to see them. And also I just wanted him to just see this. So it was really fun. It just is phenomenal. And Jake Schaefer and Russell Emanuel, they're all there, who's the producer. It was really amazing.
How did you enjoy that part of it?
Yeah, the songs was so cool because I love music, and my mom handled most of the songwriting, though, I will say, most of the lyrics, because
she writing lyrics.
Yeah, she's very good at that.
Do you play any instruments? Do you write the lyrics?
Yeah, I used to play a lot more instruments. I did bass and guitar, but now I just sing. But yeah, I'm a singer. I don't do a lot of songwriting, but I do sometimes if
Oh,
I'm
cool. If you play in town at all, that I will come see you.
yeah.
And we had seen, so I will say I both just came back from Edinburgh, and my niece Samantha, we went to the Fringe Festival this year, but I had gone the year before, last year, by myself, and I saw Patty Harrison. I was already a huge fan from I Think You Should Leave. And so her Fringe show last year had some singing in it. And I'd also seen some really funny sketches of her online where she sang. And so I was like, she can sing. She could carry a tune, and she gets the jokes. So as Kara is this amazing singer. So when she composes a song, she has this great voice. In fact, when we did that Christmas episode, there was a song that Patti LaBelle was sang on it. And we had given Patti LaBelle this demo track with Kara's voice on it. And Patti LaBelle was like, "Oh, who's that singing on?" And Kara was like, "Oh my God." To have Patti LaBelle say, "Wow, girl, you can
Very
sing."
impressive.
But
So that's another little exclusive is that Patty Harrison will be singing some songs.
yeah, so we had these great songs. We were so into them. Once Kara gave them to us, we were listening to them over because they were just sounding so great. It is great with Kara. And then Patty came in and she had said she'd been taking singing lessons, and because of this part, she has to sing at one point like Grace Slick, and then another point she has to sing very sort of falsetto, and then she
Just like a Britney Spears.
she does a
thing.
Britney Spears, and it really
She's super
blew us
talented.
away with them. So now then when we heard Patty's version, it was so great.
So good.
Yeah.
How wonderful. I cannot wait to see this episode. It sounds so intriguing to me.
You're in for a treat with the music.
Please keep me posted so I'll let our audience know when it does air. Now,
Yes.
Corky, you wrote, now it was just the final season of Full House. Were you on the final season or more?
I actually wrote the last episode.
I just remembered that now. That is so cool. Now, you were on the final season of Full House, and then you went to The Simpsons, correct?
I think there was a couple of shows in between.
No matter what, jumping from something like Full House, respectable, bravo, would have killed to be on. But to jump to the iconic Simpsons, that is amazing. How did you do that? Could you just tell a little bit about your life, about that time for the writers out there?
Yeah. So Full House was one of my first shows that I was on. I've been on a show with Matthew Perry just before that only lasted for, I think, maybe 13 episodes, and called Home Free just before.
What was Home Free about? I don't remember.
Home Free it was supposed to be about a woman who gets a divorce and moves back in with her mother and her wisecracking 21-year-old brother, who was played by Matthew Perry, who also Matthew Perry's character worked at some kind of small local paper with Dan Schneider at the time, who was an actor.
Dan Schneider as in Nickelodeon Dan?
Yeah, Nickelodeon Dan Schneider, yes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, just side note, this is called Pineapple. I learned this from Rose Catherine Pinkney, when you just change subjects. Pineapple, Dan Schneider, for the writers out there to know, look up a little, what is it, documentary? What was that documentary called?
I think it was Behind Closed Doors.
Yeah. But yeah, he's an interesting guy. I'm sorry. I could just go for an hour on this. So let's not do that. Okay, go ahead. Back to you.
Yes, that was my first show. Even before that one was a show called Birds of a Feather.
Nancy Steen?
That was Nancy Steen who ran it. And it was Rosie O'Donnell and Melissa Gilbert.
This is so fun. Hold the phone. How was Rosie?
Rosie, at the time, she was unhappy because she had signed up to do this show, and then stuff got delayed, and then she had done A League of Their Own. And so I think she was like, I'm beyond this, but she was contractually had to be on our show. And so she's got a big personality. She's very funny. And this is especially like young, hungry Rosie. But she was a little grouchy because she didn't want to be on this show. She was always nice to me, but there would be like reports from, okay, she's made somebody else cry. And she was unhappy.
I'm just testing my memory. Was somebody in prison in
That's what it was about. It was based off of, oh no, wait. I might have called it Birds of a Feather. Our show was actually called Stand By Your Man. And it was based on a show called Birds of a Feather, which was a big British hit. And it was actually Alan McKeon, who was Tracy Ullman's husband, was our executive producer.
Oh, that's cool.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, Tracy was often there with her daughter Mabel and her cute little dogs. But yeah, so it was about two sisters their husbands, I forget what they do. They do something where they end up in jail. It was some blue collar crime where they tried to sell stolen goods or something. I can't remember exactly their crime, but the story is basically about the one sister is like, because the one husband is the patio furniture king of Paramus. That would be the Melissa Gilbert character. And then the other was Rosie O'Donnell, who was a little bit more rough and tumble. But so it was basically that. The two husbands in prison, and then the two sisters have to move in together.
Those were your kind of first shows where you're getting your feet wet. You're what? You're a baby writer at this point? Yeah, you're a baby writer.
And then Home Free was the next one. And then after that, I got on Full House, and I was very excited because Home Free and Stand By Your Man were both, I think they were like 20 weeks of work. And back then you'd work for 20 weeks and then you couldn't work at all until the next staffing season. Now it's a little bit less. I think people produce all year round, but like back then it was like, there were like 5 weeks after the schedule was announced where you'd have to get a job. And we called it, I don't even know if we have staffing season anymore, but that's what they used to call it. After the upfronts, there would be staffing season. And if you didn't get a job, you would not work until the next staffing season. So then to be on Full House, which I was never a big fan of that show, but that show was guaranteed for 2 seasons. And I was like, oh my God, to have 22 episodes. And then I get to go on a vacation for my hiatus and then come back and knowing I had a job was an incredible luxury. I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then I thoroughly enjoyed my time there. It wasn't creatively challenging. The actors were all really nice. I will say that. Stamos is very nice, and Bob Saget is funny, and Dave Coulier is very sweet, and I loved Lori Loughlin. And it was so funny because being in other writing rooms, we would make fun of the idea of the Olsen twins. But then when you're actually on a show with these 2 little 8-year-old girls, they're just so sweet, and they tried so hard, and they were so well behaved. And
I think I remember you saying something to me once, or I was in a conversation where I forget how you said this, something like, if you want to come say something about those 2 girls, just stop.
It became like, yeah, I couldn't, just TV writers or just comedians in general we're a sassy bunch and nothing is sacred. And so I probably did too, but now you're talking about these 8-year-old girls that I like and I care about. And I would worry about them because we would get weird fan letters, and sometimes you'd see people react to them and be like, can I give you a hug? And it'd be like, no, watch that guy. It was really, it's weird because they're children. And that came up a lot in general in Full House. It was weird watching. We'd have to audition a lot of kids too. And that was strange for me too. I just remember thinking like, I don't know if I had a kid, and I did have one this year, but I remember thinking if they really showed interest in acting, maybe have them do theater or something, and then maybe later let them go into it.
I once saw up in Calgary on set, the mom had a towel and the toddler would scream into the towel, I guess when he had too much energy or something. And it was like, I didn't like it. And I still think about it. And the minute you started talking about stuff, it came rushing back to me.
People were pretty protective of Mary-Kate and Ashley and all of them, Jodie and Candace. They were protective in the Andrea, Kimmy. I don't think there was any abuse in that way, but I do think they were overworked, Mary-Kate and Ashley. We were overworked. I felt working on a TV show, that's hard work. And then we'd come back from a hiatus and I'd say, what'd you do? And they'd be like, we did a TV movie. And they were in demand. And I felt like a lot of the people who were supposed to be taking care of them, it starts to be like they stand to make money too. And so it just got really, anyway, but I felt like they were a little bit overworked. And
right.
That I don't think there was there could be a lot worse things. But the thing was, having little kids do auditions, it just feels not good for their psyche to have to get up and be judged and not get hurt. And
oh, wait, didn't you once write a sketch about a mom critiquing her daughter's art project? Didn't you do something like that?
I did. I wrote a sketch about a mom critiquing her kids' like jokes.
No, that wasn't a sketch. That was a biography.
It's the only way he would learn.
Okay, so you're writing, and you've got a really wonderful career going, but again, it's not Simpsons level. How did you get into the Simpsons?
But I do remember there was like this one show that I had after Full House, Mark Warren and Dennis Rinsler, who ran Full House, they were like, they wanted to run another show and they liked my work and I was still very new. And so they asked me if I wanted to work on their pilot. And so it was just me, those two and me, and they were paying me under the table. And of course, at that time I was like, yeah, I hope I don't get anybody in trouble with that. But they weren't paying me very much. But I went to the casting and it was just us three rewriting. And like at one point, one of them went on vacation and I kept working. This was on a hiatus. And then the other one went on a vacation and I kept working with the other one. And I was like, I know they aren't making what I'm making. They were showrunners. But I was like, this is a really great experience. And that was, we were writing this show, The Parenthood, which was Robert Townsend. And it was a predominantly Black show. That was really great because we had a writer's room that was predominantly Black writers. That was a really great experience because it was interesting I felt that like the Black community is so supportive. So many people would come out and I think also because Robert Townsend was such a lightning rod for all these talented people. But yeah, so we did that. And then Mark and Dennis wanted to do this other show called Nick Freno, Licensed Teacher. And I helped them with that. And they were always like, if people wanted to leave, they could leave. But when I came to them and said, okay, I've got this opportunity to work on another show, I'd like to leave after this year. They were like, and it was actually a show by David Stern, who was a Simpsons writer. He had a show called Manhattan Man, which is about superhero. It was really great pilot, I remember. And they were like, oh, no, you can't go. Warner Brothers won't let you go. And it was like, I don't know. I was really upset because I felt like I didn't believe them that it was Warner Brothers. I think they didn't want to let me go. And they just knew I was too much of a wimp to make a stink. So I stayed. And then that year, my mother was dying. And so I was on this show and I was going home and it was really awful. And I told myself the next year, if I'm not on a good show that I really love, I'm not going to take the thing. And Brian Scully was on Nick Freno with me. And he went on to go work with his brother, Mike Scully, who was running The Simpsons. I'm part of it. I don't know if he knew that I was like stuck on the show I didn't want to be on, and that and then it was like Nick Freno at the time was like last place, but then they still somehow got renewed. I was like, ugh. And then Brian came to me and told me, he said, my brother's running The Simpsons. And he was very nice to me. And he said, I know that I don't want to bug my brother, but I know that he will take at least one person that I recommend. And so I've thought long and hard about this, and I recommend you. And so I was blown away. And I met with Mike, and I really liked him, and we hit it off, and he liked my scripts, and he made it sound like, yeah, I think this is going to work. And then that was when the whole Phil Hartman thing happened. So I had this interview, and then 2 months went by. And normally if you don't hear in 2 months, but they were like, no, we've had a terrible thing happen.
Their brains must have been scrambled. And for the listeners, Phil Hartman, the wonderful Phil Hartman, actor, Saturday Night Live, News Radio, Groundlings, was murdered by his wife in their home while their children were there. So that was a pretty big shakeup. Did you get a phone call? Did you get an email? What did you get letting you know that you were staffed?
Staffing season was over and all the shows were staffed. So I was like, oh, I guess I'm just going to not work. And I'm trying to remember, it was getting close to June. And then my agent said, no, they said yes. And that was it.
I think I remember you saying it could have been a couple years in, or it could have been 3 days in. I'm not sure. But I remember you saying, I'm happy. I don't have to have another job for the rest of my life. You were so happy over there.
I was. I remember being very, and I still am, but at the time I remember wanting to be conscious of the fact that this might be my good old days.
Oh,
that this is what I wanted to, like, not have to look back and go, you know what, that was the best time. I wanted to like think this is it happening right now.
Your mom get to see you be on staff at The Simpsons?
No, because she died in that other show. I remember she passed away, and then I was like, okay, I just gotta, we're the last place show. She died in October, and I'm like, I just have a few more weeks left and then we'll be done. And then they're like, guess what? We got a back 9. It was like celebrating. And I was like, excuse me. And I had to like go into my office and cry. I'm like, why would they renew this show? But,
I like to think that your mom was the connection for you to get the dream job.
I think she probably was manipulating some things up there. But mostly, I don't want to discount the actions of Brian Scully.
Thank you, Brian. Kai, when did you realize your mom was such a big deal?
I think I realized from a fairly early age, because whenever I would go with her to, I don't know, like some event or something, and
Comic-Con or anything like that?
Something, yeah, but Comic-Con is a good example, but where we would meet a lot of people, and then the conversation would be like, oh, what do you do? And she's, oh, I write for The Simpsons. And everyone would go, oh, wow. Even if they were just feigning interest, they at least knew that was something super cool to go, oh, wow, about. And I think I picked up on that. But yeah, seeing her on Comic-Con panels, I loved Comic-Con. I still love Comic-Con, but yeah.
We're big Comic-Con fans.
Yeah, a thing I really liked, seeing her be such a big deal there. Everyone was like, oh, hey, I want to hear what she has to say. I want to ask her some questions. And I realized, yeah, she's a big deal.
Well, I'm on a panel with big deal, people who are big deal.
Yeah, you're a
like,
really good mooch.
Yeah. They're like, wow, Matt Groening is a big deal. And she's sitting next to him.
Kind of the flip side of that. When did you notice that Kai had a talent for writing? And now that you say about those little improvs, I see where it was probably forming for you. But was it even earlier?
I will say, because Kai would fight wanting to be a writer. But even like when he was really young, like 3, he had to go to speech therapy because at 3, they want little kids to be understood by strangers. Like 75% of what a kid says should be understood by strangers. But the pediatrician was like, I don't really understand him. So he had to go to speech therapy. So at one point she showed him a thing and she goes, see, like what he's saying here, it's because she said it's like a bulldozer. And he was saying, no, front loader. But he was saying it like front loader. Like he had a hard time saying his F's.
Oh, okay.
And so I think he was just learning words out of order, because usually at 3 years old, kids early on, they say one syllable words, and they're not really saying big full sentences. But he was saying 3 or 4 syllable words. Usually they would go for the simple things and get their mouth muscles more into it. And then they would start forming sentences. He was skipping getting the word formation. And he was, at one point, he was telling me a story and I subtitled it for the speech therapist because she couldn't hear it. I could hear it because people who knew, because I knew what he was saying. And then when she realized, oh my God, he's telling a whole story, which like, it was a little advanced. And I felt like it also just his sense of story, even on a very primary level, I felt like he gets it. Like, even knowing he would start like, what's upon a time? And then I remember when he was 9, his teacher giving me that poem about and it was so beautifully written about the winter in the forest. And he showed it to me and I was like, wait, Kai wrote this? And he's, yeah. And like the teacher himself was also like, his way with words is so great. And the interesting thing about that poem is it makes the form of if you just look at the words, it formed a tree. And basically, I guess because his lines were just getting wider and then there's this short little thing. And I was like, was that the assignment? And he was like, no, that's just what he did. You didn't even know that you were doing that.
No, I think I probably wanted to make a tree also.
And I'm sure you went on vacations and stuff, but you're a California kid and you're writing, that's very deep, writing about the winter in the forest.
Yeah, don't have many forests, don't have many winters. All of this was just from my imagination. This is what I think a forest is.
And that's a writer. Hey, Kai, back in the day, I don't know if you know this, after an improv show that your mother and I were in or a class, we used to get in Mark Steen's van, Steve Martin's van, and hit Sunset Boulevard. And we also danced at places like the Crush Club.
The Boss Club.
What was that?
The Boss Club. It was like at the place called Imperial Gardens. They would and it was like on Thursday or Wednesday nights. It was all Springsteen songs that.
Yeah, I think I had my very first, we weren't big drinkers or anything like that, but I think I had my first, you dropped something into a beer, a Boilermaker or something like that? Sake Slammer?
Yeah, I never did that, but I do remember seeing that.
Yeah, okay. I believe you.
I never drank at all.
Well, tell me about young Hollywood, Kai. What are the kids doing? What are the cool places? What do your friends do for fun? Are you quiet? Do you do house parties?
I gotta say, I think me and my friends are pretty boring, to be honest. Sometimes we do go out for drinks or something, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't know a lot of good clubs at the moment. We'll mainly just hang out at each other's places, each other's houses, whatever. We'll just call or talk to each other on the onlines, on the interwebs. I think a lot of that probably comes from the pandemic as well.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I also want to talk to you about this. We've gone through a pandemic. There was a writer strike, and there was one prior to that. I can't do the math. I don't know if you were alive.
You're like 5 years old or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
During that another strike, the last strike. But.
The last one. But I remember that one too.
So that's 2 strikes and a pandemic. What does that do to a young person? What do you think about the future? Whether it's just, what do you think about the future personally, about us as humanity? Tough question. Or even the industry, whatever you feel comfortable talking about.
For sure. I think one more strike and I'm out. But besides that, I think the future, as always, is pretty uncertain. Though certain things make it look more grim than I think it'll turn out to be. I think the industry, I think it'll recover in some way. I think we'll loop back around maybe.
You hope it does, because it always does, swings back and forth, and when it does, it's always in a way that you never quite were able to predict. And then sometimes I think maybe it won't. But I think we've talked about this, the idea of what is success. I feel like Kai and I really feel like Kai and I really would like to partner with him more in the future. And if I think about something beyond The Simpsons. Now, I know that even if the industry bounces back, I know that I probably will never be on anything as successful as The Simpsons. So in that regard, you think, then why would you even try to do anything else? But we just got back from the Fringe Festival
in Edinburgh, yeah.
And it really is a wonderful thing. Your writing audience out there, I will highly suggest, it's a trek, but it is such a wonderful thing. It's, first of all, the city is this incredible, weird little castle town.
The streets are confusing and bad, but they're so cool.
And cobblestones and alleyway. And he really embraced the thing of like, when
going with the flow more,
like when people flyer you, because everybody's flyering, and he would look. And I will say that the two favorite shows that we saw were ones that he discovered just by taking every flyer and looking at them and going, oh, this one sounds good. And the things we saw, this really great thing called Space Hippo, and it was like
so good.
They were a duo from Japan, although the guy is American and the girl is Japanese, and he wrote the story, and there were these shadow puppets.
Yeah, it was all shadow puppets, and they had some music, and they had like over 1,000 shadow puppets, and they just told this story, which was very sweet, and it was almost funny. Yeah, it was almost to an extent like a storybook, but you really felt when a character died, there was like an audible "ah" or
yeah.
from the audience.
It was like watching live animation, because also they're both like, they're just switching back and forth between spotlights,
characters.
And
they're doing the voices, but the guy is speaking in English and the woman is speaking in Japanese for the characters that she does. But even still, you love those characters, even if you can't understand them. They also make up alien languages too.
Even last year, I had seen this incredible play called The Outrun. And I remember I was in this little theater in Edinburgh, and I was like, it was a big theater, actually, as far as the Edinburgh theaters go, maybe 200 seats. It was so successful to me in that it was such a brilliantly done play. And it looked like it sold out as far as the people there, but it's not going to be, who knows? A lot of things happen from Edinburgh, Fleabag and Baby Reindeer and Flight of the Conchords, and Stomp. All these things came from Edinburgh, but maybe not. And that is the thing. In the end, you have to love what you're doing, and you have to that could be the success. Is if you did a Space Hippo, you did this show and you created this magic moment where 50 people in this tiny room saw this thing and were moved by this thing, and it was this incredible moment. That's what you have to be in it for, and hope that other things follow, because who knows what's going to happen in the future with this industry.
This all to say that the future of writing and the industry and just, I guess, creativity at large is still pretty bright. You just need to look in the right places.
And expand your definition of what success is.
Thank you guys so much for spending so much time and giving so much of your story to the listeners of the Writers Hangout. I had the best time. I hope you did too.
Yeah, this was super fun. Thanks for having
really
us.
fun. It was fun to do this together, and
definitely
and to talk to you, Sandy. And we should definitely have dinner.
I hope our dinner didn't have anything to do with the fire starting.
I don't think so. Yeah, because it would be bad if we plan another dinner and LA burns again.
The chances aren't zero. Right. Just be careful.
If it happens again, we will have to think about maybe we should be lunch people.
And that's a wrap for the Writers Hangout. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Your positive feedback will help us keep the show going so we can continue bringing you more future episodes. Remember, keep writing. The world needs your stories. The Writers Hangout is sponsored by the Page International Screenwriting Awards, with executive producer Kristin Overn, producers Sandy Adomaitis, and myself, Terry Sampson. And our music is composed by Ethan Stoller.